Y'all got me on a terrible day. Clothes in the back. We're traveling. Mirror behind me. You see what I'm doing? Child. It's one of those days. My arm is sore from the booster. Can't lift it. But hi, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for being here, existing. You know, I appreciate your being here. I appreciate you being alive. I'm happy that you're here.
Are you sure about that?
Child, I want to talk about something that's been heavy on my heart the last couple of, well, forever. But I just started to put a label on it, you dig? And here I am talking quietly again because my sister is sleeping, even though she probably wouldn't hear me because she's a heavy sleeper. I'm just considerate and I overthink. But anywho, let's continue. So I want to talk about the concept of validation, right? It's something that all of us, I would say essentially need, not consciously. We don't consciously seek it out. It's one of those things we were conditioned to need for the feeling of safety and well-being, if that makes sense. Validation has always been ingrained in us. Grades, praises from our parents, good jobs, you know, like simply saying good job. All those things are forms of validation, and they make us feel worthy, they make us feel safe, and overall just give us a sense of well-being, whatever context it may be in. As we grow up, as we get older, the way we tend to choose validation, the way we tend to desire it has changed, you know? Growing up, it was given to us, you know, in, I would say, healthy ways to a certain extent. Validation, we seek validation through posting pictures on social media, the likes we get, the feedback we get, who's seen it, how much interaction we get with our content, that sort of thing. Influencers are essentially built up and have gotten their success through the validation of a large amount of people, you know? And that's great. That's really good validation. That's really good. But validation can be, you know, it can impact us negatively when we need it for a sense of well-being, like we were given growing up. So how your upbringing can affect your need for validation can come in many forms. How relationships were portrayed to me when I was younger, they were portrayed to me as a thing where you had to struggle and work for it, like really hard for love. Relationships were shown to me as struggles, as things that had a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse to a certain extent, a lot of negativity in them, but you had to stick together because, you know, the love you work for is the one that's worth it, you know? And that's not how love should be, you know what I'm saying? That's not what love should be at all. Like, you shouldn't have to work for love. That's just like, you know, parental love that I've seen, like how marriages should work. That's the love that was like shown. Like, we have to work for it, to struggle through it. Love is a struggle. That was taught to me. But even besides the marital sense, as a child, it was kind of like love was conditional. Like, if you did what you were told, you were given the praise, you were given the love. But if you did something that was undesirable, it wasn't just a simple punishment we would receive. It was like just taking the love right back. Like, you're not worthy if you don't do what you were told. If you did things incorrectly, you weren't worthy, you weren't worth it. Like, you're broken, you're wrong, you're just messed up. Childhood can really groom someone to believing that love is conditional and love is a struggle, and then you have to work to be loved. You have to do things to receive that love. And of course, when we're younger, it makes sense, you know? You don't want to receive the scolding from your parents, so you're going to do what you're told so you can get the praise and be safe, in a sense. When you mess up, you get that scolding and you get that just love taken back in a sense. And that all ties in with like people pleasing aspects. And that's where like people can become codependent, become people pleasers, because you feel worthy when you make like the unlovable love you, or you kind of make someone like you or love you, if that makes sense. Like, if I do this, then they'll love me. And that's where we get our worth from. Like, see, I've done it. Like, I am worth it. I did make them love me. I did make them like me, you know? So like a quote that I've seen on Instagram, which is actually my current screensaver, because in this time period, I'm very much dealing with the idea of validation and self-worth being dependent on people's actions and how they treat me currently. But the quote essentially says, like, when I, what is it? A little overview of it, or like what it essentially said, because I do not have it memorized right now. So I no longer see lack of reciprocation as a challenge for me to prove my worth. And I saw that and I was like, it gave me exactly what I needed. Instagram gave me exactly what I needed that day. That just sums it all up, like, to a certain extent. Like, that sums up one part of validation. Like, why we go into relationships or situations or have friendships where people who like give us some affirmation sometimes, make us feel worthy sometimes, to a person like me who has anxious attachment style, like anxious avoidant. Like, I want to make people like me, and when I feel disliked, I try to prove my likingness to them to make myself feel worthy. And that all stemmed from my childhood, you know, unconditional love, or no, conditional love. It was only conditional when I did good, and when I did things people liked, that I received the love I wanted and needed to, you know, grow up properly. But so nowadays, when it comes to relationships, friendships, whatever, I will feel the need, like the emotional need, to prove my worth to people, to validate me. Because love wasn't just given unconditionally. Yes, I was loved unconditionally, of course, but it was a lot of the times where I didn't do things up to par, and I was given less love or less attention and less praise. So in my head, I felt the need to be perfect, the need to do things above and beyond, get all the 4.0s, be in everything, get all these degrees, just to subconsciously prove my worth to my parents, I guess, you know, to my inner child. So in regard to people, relationships, I would do anything for that reciprocation subconsciously. That's why I always wondered, like, where my attachment style stemmed from, which I did some digging, of course, childhood, but it's really just you, like, feeling the need to prove yourself all the time. Like, oh, I'll do this to get their attention, because, like, it's like that one, you know, the situations where you'll have that one toxic person who you just can't let go of. That attachment is there. You don't know why you can't let go of them, but like, they're not, like, maybe it's circumstantial, but they're not claiming you, situationship. You're talking, but you're not, blah, blah, blah. And you stay. You logically know you shouldn't, right? But it's one of those things where you're like, well, subconsciously, you're like, getting a little bit of their love is better than not getting it at all. You're getting affirmed occasionally, but you're used to that roller coaster from being, you know, a child. You're used to that emotional roller coasters of having good days with your family, having bad days with your family, like being loved one day, being loved not the next day. So our body is so used to that. So we get people like me who go through certain things like this, and people like you who go through the same things, potentially. You're attracted to those relationships that are up and down, because it shows you something that you're very comfortable with already. Your body is comfortable with conditional love, conditional situations, conditional attention, conditional validation. And it's safe to us because our body has grown up with it. So when people show us that, we're like, something I know. That's why healthy relationships are so hard for people like me to find, to a certain extent. It doesn't feel exciting. Those butterflies aren't there, right? The butterflies. It feels familiar and safe because we, you know, became familiar and safe when we grew up in those environments, because we had to survive, you know, like we had to adapt to our environment to grow up and to feel safe. So the only way for us to be feeling safe growing up was to adapt to those circumstances and learn how to survive and people please and be codependent. Our worth would come from how desirable and lovable and just worth it we are to whoever we're allowing that power to be given to. Of course, growing up, it was our parents, right? Like, did I do good, mom? Did I do good? Like, did I do bad? Like, yeah, you did great. We feel like, yay, like I proved myself I am good enough. I'm good enough. Make a mistake, we're not good enough. So we brought that into our relationships, friendships, try to be perfect, try to be the best we can, people pleasing, codependency, just to prove ourselves worthy of being enough. So how can we work through it? I don't know. I've been trying to work through it myself. Acknowledging it. First of all, that like, dang, I really am trying to like prove myself worthy to these people. So how can we get through seeking validation from others? I mean, honestly, I'm doing it right now, so we're gonna get through this together, you dig? I guess the first thing was being aware of it, because like it was gnawing at me. It was gnawing at me that the fact that I was trying to be good enough for people who didn't ask me to do that. I just assumed they wanted me to be a certain way, and that made me feel like, oh, you're not worthy enough. It's about to be around this person, or that person won't like you enough until you do this. It's all subconscious thoughts and actions, or subconscious thoughts that made me do these things, because it's like it really changes your emotional state when you feel less than. And throughout time, it started, like I said, gnawing at me. And I'm like, why don't I feel good enough in regard to these people? Why? Only because of reasons I made up and the way I've been conditioned to grow up. So to fix it, first, I have to become aware of it and then challenge it, because I know I'm not a big practicer of affirmations, which I should be, because that would fix a lot of my problems. If we like switch those thoughts and we really train ourselves to validate ourselves, that would be a great way to fix it, because the only way to like not give other people the power to validate you is to validate yourself. I'm not gonna say I'm like a queen of it. Like, I'm not gonna say, oh, some influencers or people are just like, yeah, I used to be like this, but I'm not anymore, so I'm gonna show you how to get out of it. I'm still in it. I'm just in the awareness stage. I'm in the working stage. I'm in the processes. I'm trying to break out of it. I'm still feeling all this tightness, this anxiety, all these things, I'm feeling all these things, just like you could be feeling. So yeah, it sounds idealistic, validate yourself and you'll be good to go. I'm trying, but I can say the most powerful thing to do is to try and to do, actually perform the actions to validate yourself. Like getting off social media, getting away from the triggers and investigating those triggers from afar, separating yourself from the trigger for a bit, investigating it, and just kind of just like I said, like, of course, affirmations, but like affirm yourself, like, okay, like that's the trigger. It's not that scary. It's just my feelings towards it, talking through it, unpacking your emotions with it. I know it takes a lot of work and it sounds like a lot of psychology, all the stuff you've seen before, heard before, but it's really a process, because it's like something you've grown up with. It's really hard to unpack and uncondition, decondition, get rid of all the stuff that was ingrained in you growing up, So it's a lot, but it's better to do it while we're young, because I know there's lots of older people in this world, 40 plus, 50 plus, who are just now finding out that they have childhood trauma. Can you believe that? 22, I figured it out, like started delving into when I was about 20, 21, which I'm very grateful for, because oh my gosh, because it'll be even harder to get rid of or heal that trauma when you're further along in life. Seeing, like being aware, right? Being aware that you do have problems with validation and validating yourself and your self-worth. Next is finding ways to try to validate yourself, going through that beginning process of, acknowledging it, finding what the trigger is and like analyzing the trigger from afar, trying to see why that in particular thing makes you want to prove yourself worthy of it. Why don't you feel worthy of it? Why don't you feel good enough in that circumstance? Unpack And last thing you can do is just like find a motivation to focus on. Of course, the strongest one, a couple of the most strongest things you can really focus on is like, okay, you're trying to like heal yourself and like be, you know, make yourself proud, because people who lack like a certain amount of self-worth and like validation, like me, it's really a big thing to prove yourself worthy to yourself. It's a very powerful feeling. But another thing you can do is like maybe have an external thing, you know, to motivate you. Like for me also, it's like I'm trying to heal all my childhood traumas, be better for myself, of course, but I want to heal all of these things for my future children and family. You know, I want to heal for my daughter. Like that's the first thing I thought of. Like, yeah, son, I'm gonna have a couple, you know, whatever. I'm gonna have all the babies. But for my daughter specifically, I don't want to have to go to I don't want my daughter to have to go to therapy to heal from me or what I've done or how I parent. And I want to be a role model for what they should try to, you know, do for their own lives, how they should feel or be. I don't want to like be like, okay, you're gonna be like me, daughter, like you need to be like me, but like I want to be a good role model for them. I want to validate myself, and I don't want my daughter to get validation from other people to make her feel worthy. Disgusting. No, I want her to validate herself and I want her to feel worthy by default, like she is, like I am. Because if you think about it from other like people's perspectives, your best friend maybe, imagine them telling you like, yeah, like I get validation from other people, but they wouldn't say that because it's all like deep, but you can see them like trying to get attention and try to do all these things to feel worthy, and that'll make you be like, oh my gosh, why are they doing that? They're already perfect the way they are, blah blah blah. But we don't view ourselves in that manner. So like for me, my biggest motivation is like I don't want to traumatize my kids. I'm trying to heal all my, not as soon as possible, but like I want to heal as much as I can before I have kids and stuff, so I really don't traumatize them. And I want to be a good role model for them, because I want them to have confidence in themselves, and I want them to validate themselves, not have to feel anxious or like in regard with their relationships and like whatever they have growing up, whatever relationships they have growing up. I want them to have a secure attachment style. Like I didn't know, I just thought it was natural for me to like freak out when people don't text me back, you know, but like secure people tend to like, you know, well, you know, person didn't text me back, that's fine, probably busy. But me, I'm like, they hate me, I've done something wrong, you know, like I want my child to grow up with a secure attachment style, things like that. Yeah, so my biggest motivation is trying to prove myself worthy to myself, which I don't need to because I already am worthy, but you know, I'm going to do it because like I already have these thoughts that I'm not, whatever. But prove myself worthy to myself, and I want to heal for my children so I don't traumatize them. That's my biggest motivation, to go deep and investigate these triggers and traumas, because there's so many adults, like I said, older people who just then realize they have childhood traumas and have to like do years of unpacking and healing, which I want to prevent as much as I can while I'm young. Damn. It's been a long day and a long video. Not really at all, but thank you for letting me unpack my emotions with you. Another free therapy session for me. But I really appreciate you being here. I hope this had some kind of, you know, useful information for you, for some things for you to reflect on, investigate on, see if you have some, you know, tendencies to seek validation from external circumstances and people and actions and all that. So I hope this is helpful. I appreciate you watching, and just thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.